All right. I hope you guys liked it. Jeff C, take that, baby. We've got. I had an awesome intro, a little countdown from our guest today on Google Plus Business Spotlight. Welcome everybody. We're going to introduce her in just a second. We're changing things up a little bit because she is like a complete pro here at elevating your game on Hangouts, and so. We're toying with some new. We're playing with some new toys, and we're going to give some of these things a shot. So I guess what we'll do, yeah, welcome to Google Plus Business Spotlight. It's a little bit different than my normal intro. Here with my co-host, Ben Fisher, and you can't see him, I don't think, so say hi, Ben, so we can get you up here.
Happy Hump Day Wednesday, everybody.
Rock on. All right, cool. And then just real quick, before we introduce our guest, who did our kick-ass countdown earlier, I want to remind everybody that we are going to do a special gift for everybody on our email list. So go to GPLUSSPOTLIGHT.com at some point. Open up a new tab. It's cool because you still want to stay focused here. Open up a new tab in your browser. Go to GPLUSSPOTLIGHT.com. It's front and center. Name and email. Real simple. We don't spam you. But we have a gift for you today, and we want to give it to our subscribers because you guys rock, and you are actually going to help us shape this show in the future. So if you're interested in any of that, get on the email list, and right after the show, we're going to send all this information over to you. All right. I'm done with that. Now, let's introduce our guest, Yifat Cohen, your G+GoTo Gal, totally amazing woman, been here for a long time, since what, like day 2.5, I think?
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, so, she's here, and she's completely just elevated her game here on Google+, does coaching, strategy, Hangouts, you're a Glass Explorer too, right?
Yep.
Cool.
I totally missed that one. Sorry, just said yes.
Oh, that's okay. And I'm going to pin you now, since we can't see each other here in this the bottom film strip thingy. And yeah, just welcome. So I gave you a little bit of an intro. If there's anything else you want to add, awesome. Otherwise, I'd love to talk about what we just did, and then we can just kind of go from there with all this green screen stuff.
So what did we do? We are playing with camera effects. So do you want to start with where Hangouts are, why for business, or do you want to dive into effects or not effects, studio, not studio? What's the first thing you guys want to talk about?
Yeah, let's I guess just give everybody a quick overview of what we can do with Hangouts besides just these talking head shows that we do every every week. How's that?
Cool. So let me talk about my experience. So what I've done in the last year with Hangouts is we have brought in virtual audience to local events. So how can Hangouts help small business? There are so many ways, right? So if we're doing Hangouts just as collaboration with the team members, like internal meetings, then we can use Hangouts for that. And there are so many new features that allow you to work on the same document even if you're not in front of your PC. So using Hangouts as a collaboration tool inside a business is not only efficient, saving you time, saving you money because it's free, and really speeds up stuff. Right? Do you guys remember the video that Google did about using Hangouts for meeting? And they're like, hey, let's run about it, right? In like 30 seconds, the meeting is over. And because, we're already here, we're all talking about the same thing, we all finished working on the documents, it's done. So that's what I do with my personal clients, my private clients, is work with them on Hangout. Another thing is that when we are doing events as businesses or speakers or trying to bring in like really high caliber guests, and we don't want to fly them and we don't have the means to actually bring them in for training, pay for their flight and hotel and time, what we've done is with Social Good Summit, we brought high-level speakers, and we actually met in a theater in Austin, and we projected the Hangout on the big screen, so that was like a real presentation of someone from New York at an event speaking to our local audience. They didn't have to spend more than the 30 minutes that they spoke. We got to interact with them face-to-face, so we actually took questions from the audience, presented them to the speaker, and things like that. The Office of the Governor of Texas runs a lot of events for small businesses, and the challenge is that because they're small businesses, they can't leave their business and come physically to the event. So what we've done is we opened it up in a Hangout, and we allowed people to participate face-to-face and interact with the panel asking a question, still being there in person, but not leaving their business. So there's so many applications. It's really depending on the business, what your end goal is, and what your desired outcome is. Long story short.
I love it. I love it. And I will say I've been fortunate enough to speak to a couple of college classes across the country, actually. A friend of mine hooked me up with a friend of hers who happens to be a college professor over at, I think, Western Washington University, which is in Washington. Yep, go figure. And yeah, I've talked to a couple of his classes, and it's really, I mean, it is really neat. So like equipment-wise, what he does is he sets up his laptop, I think, with the webcam pointing at the class, and then it's projecting up on the screen, so people are kind of looking at, they're sort of not really looking at me, but this way I can give my, a quick little presentation using screen sharing, and then I can sit there and look at them because the webcam's facing them, there's really no disconnect. It's really cool. I love how easy it is. You're right. It's totally.
And now, like with Chromecast, it's even easier, right? Because take Chromecast, and then you cast from your phone or from your laptop right into a TV. And so instead of projecting and having to mess up with lights and all that stuff in dark room, you can just have a TV there and just cast it. And you can take your $35 Chromecast anywhere you want,
Absolutely.
and have it on a few TVs. So yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying, Yifat. And I totally agree. I mean, there was one conference that I was doing, and one of the business reasons that they had was, it was a MIVA conference, actually, an e-commerce company. One of the reasons they wanted to do it was because they didn't want to fly everybody in from one of their Florida offices all the way to the West Coast. So they just wanted to stream their entire conference, basically, and have all of the people that were in the other office watch and engage with all the employees. And I remember actually there was recently one that Guy Kawasaki did with Richard Branson, where they did have an audience, they had an auditorium, they had all these high-powered speakers that were in one room, but they were able to bring in everybody from Google live to interact with the audience. So that was just another example of how Hangouts can be used.
Yeah, so it's really, if you are what I love about this is that the technology is there. Most of it is free, right? Hangouts are free. Chromecast is like $35, so you can really have an awesome event, combining the technology, and with what, a quarter of the cost that it would normally cost you, and you can even expand your reach and your bottom line by selling virtual tickets. So all those people who can't actually be there in person can participate live from their house, half price. You just double the income. You don't have to pay for space, for more people, but you are serving more people. So yeah, awesome.
That's an awesome point, actually. That's a really great point.
I want to bring up a real totally awesome comment here from Christopher Vogelman that I don't have enough hair for #Chromecast. Maybe the audio got a little funky on us, but yeah, it's Chromecast, but that's okay. No, that's hysterical. Thank you for that. Awesome. So let's see. I got to get rid of that. All right, why don't you guys chime in while I?
Yeah. So I mean, talking about the technology, Eva, is so we're talking about you've used green screens, multiple camera angles, and HOAs. What are the tools of the trade that you're using right now? And how advanced are you? I mean, compared to when you first started.
So when I started, it's really funny looking at previous Hangouts of me, and I'm like, oh my God, I hang out in tank top, like what was I thinking? It's like all kinds of stuff, and I remember the first time. You remember when we didn't have Hangouts on air, and we just had like regular Hangouts, and we were so afraid to hang out with strangers on video. I remember I was a black man because my camera had this little feature that, like a little cartoon that will talk for you. Remember those, like those talking cats and stuff? I used to be a black man, and it took a while, right? It took us a long time to kind of feel comfortable hanging out with strangers, and look at us today. It's like, oh, sure, I'll jump on your Hangout, and yes, it will be recorded on YouTube, and I'm totally fine with it. So there's such, like in, what is it, like 2 years, right? Collectively, we just like total mind shift, because now people are not embarrassed to be on Hangouts. Now people are like, how do I get my Hangout show, right? And it's not even a question, oh my God, I'm on camera. we all have those issues, but it's like we're going beyond that to like, how do I create a really great Hangout show? How do I become a great host? So it's really amazing, like collectively how we change the mindset of everybody. Like, and if you think about it, nobody does that. Like, where else do you hang out? Do you do video calls with strangers? Not on Skype, not on Facebook, not on Twitter, not on never. Like, right?
Well, it's basically democratized broadcasting. Everybody used to want to have their 15 minutes of fame, their walk-on part in a movie, maybe a part, in a commercial or something like that, a struggling actor. Now we've all got this beautiful platform which basically allows us to say anything, do anything, be who we are, be anything, and create whatever we want and become our own producers. Like what you've mastered, obviously.
So if I might rant a little bit about the difference between Hangouts and all the other mediums like Wirecast, which is YouTube broadcasting, and live stream that was there before. And I think that the biggest difference between Hangouts and all these other mediums is the engagement and what you just did, Stepan, with showing Chris's comment. So before, it was a one-way street, right? All the media, it's like a TV. Live stream, it's like a TV. We're just talking at the screen and then communicating with people in chat. And what Hangouts allows us to do is really bring in people and engage with them. And so the difference between live stream and Wirecast and all those broadcasting mediums is the two-way conversation that's happening. And what will differentiate your Hangout from anything else is the level of live engagement that you have with your audience. Otherwise, why would I take my time whenever you decide to have your show to watch you live, right, if I can't participate with you? Otherwise, I can watch it twice as fast on YouTube when it's convenient for me. So what is it that will make your show worth my while to stop everything that I'm doing during the day or night, right, and watch it? And it's the level of relationship, the engagement that I have with you, that I know that if you're on, your show is during my lunchtime and you're saying something and I have, a comment to it, that you will take my comment and respond to me live. I'm going to miss that in the replay. So the biggest question is, how do we make our show professional but yet interactive at the same time? And the only thing that I can think about it is, like on TV, it's maybe the talk shows with live audience, but those are really fake also, right? Because like everybody clap, laugh,
yeah, exactly.
Right? So we don't have that with the Hangout, but we can have a real professional show with live audience, and this is really the learning curve. Because the technology, you'll get there, and it will change, and it will become better or worse, whatever it is. But like that relationship that you're building with your audience, that's the thing that will, I think, take you into the future, where Hangouts are no longer just on the computer, but we're actually watching them like we're watching Netflix today, like around the dinner table. And that's where I think it's going to get. I think, like, Dan McDermott with his political show, right? So instead of watching CNN and yelling at the panel there like, you idiot, instead I am talking to Dan on my phone, during the Q&A, or he's bringing me into the Hangout, and now I'm talking to him face to face and his panel. And my voice is heard, and I'm being able to be part of the conversation, and I go to my friends and go like, oh my God, I was on TV yesterday, because Hangouts are now on TV. So that's.
I mean, that brings up a really great question, and that is so we've been seeing that some people are starting up game shows now. Some people are starting up even talking about doing talk shows or even late night shows. So is everything that's been done over the past 20 years in broadcast television, do you kind of see that being replicated now in Hangouts over the next 3 years?
And more real, right? Because you cannot talk to Oprah, and you cannot talk to, I don't know, Conan O'Brien, right? But in Hangouts you can. And so if you have, again, like a talk show host that is just there for his own amusement, then there's going to be another great Hangout host that is there actually engaging. And I think that's going to change our world, because we are no longer spectators, we're active participants. And so that brings in a whole new can of worms, right? Like, who do I allow into my Hangout? Do I just let everybody speak?
We have a question here.
We have a few questions, actually. I have them all pinned up here. So, but first I want to give a quick little Let's do another one from Christopher Vogelman. Great point. Just agreeing with you before that, the technology is going to change, relationships will remain, and I mean we've even seen this with how quickly this stuff here on Google Plus has just evolved over the last few years, and it's just so true. So great point, Christopher. Thank you for that one. Let's see, Jeff. I think we answered part of this, but Jeff C also, by the way, I'm going to cheap plug his Manly show because he also has an awesome trailer, and it's better than what we did here, but he uses all kinds of fun Adobe effects and things like that. But anyway, Jeff C, great guy, doing a lot of really unique things with Hangouts, and asks you, where do you think Hangouts are going in the next year, or even the next 5 years? Let's hit on that.
I think it's going to be. I'm a little biased, but I think it's going to take over the medium. I think that when people understand that this is a way to build loyal audience, forget traffic, right? Because traffic, it's like, let's build audience. And the audience, you don't even need a really big audience. If you had like 50 people and they had their own 50 and their own 50 and their own 50, eventually you reach everyone. So I think Hangouts will move from this medium of us just on the computer into the TV. I really think there's going to be like channels where you just choose whatever Hangout you want to watch. And it's basically YouTube interactive. So everything that you think about why video is great, add to that the personal engagement. And it's going to replace the TV shows. I think it's going to make all the stars and all the gurus who don't want to come down to the people and talk to us face-to-face because they're too important, realize that there are other gurus who are willing to talk to us face-to-face, and we are going to develop their relationship with them. So it's going to change the entire online marketing, the entertainment industry, I think, sports. Like, why would you pay for, I don't know, for an expensive, ticket to something if you can participate with it face-to-face virtually? And I also think it's going to change the world, the way we interact with each other. Because I was on a Hangout one time with a guy who had a kafia on. You know what a kafia is? It's the thing that Arabs wear, the checkered marks.
Oh, yeah.
And so I recognized that. And I'm like, hey, dude, where are you from? And he's like, Israel. And I'm like, Israel? Where from? And he's like, Ramallah. And Ramallah is a Palestinian city. And I was like, wow. So we started talking. I was like, how are things going there? Blah, blah, blah. He wanted to get married, so it didn't work. But if he didn't, right, if we were talking and like starting to develop a relationship, now there's an Israeli and a Palestinian having a conversation on a Hangout, and it's no longer them. It's Muhammad and his family. It's Yifat and her family, right? And we're having a conversation. And I think that way we're going to be less biased with the media that's happening and more personal relationship, and we'll know exactly what's happening in the world. And we already saw that happening, right, with Sarah Hill and Montreal, the demonstrations, right? So things are becoming more transparent and more accessible. And I don't know, in the next 5 years, it's going to be amazing to see, us being who we really are on TV and engaging with real people. So if you want to start a Hangout show now, I would say invest not in learning the technology, invest in building a real audience.
That's great advice. And you know what? I think it also dovetails into a couple of comments we have here, so I'm going to bring them up too. And I'm only doing this because you've completely changed the way that our show goes, in a great way. We've never had this level of engagement. I thank you for that, for bringing your audience over to our show. Truly, I thank you for that. And really just sparking conversations is fantastic. So I'm inspired to say, hey, let's bring as many of these things up as possible and just forget what we were going to talk about anyway. And Denise Wakeman, another amazing host, a friend of ours. Level of live engagement is what distinguishes HOAs from other broadcast media, and I totally agree with that. And thank you for that. And Denise is also, actually, I was on one of Denise's shows where we gave away a couple of my ebooks based on the comments in the live event, so in the event page. So that was a really cool experience. And we also have from, oh boy, I'm going to mess your name up, Crystal. Kezain, I'm going to go with. Hangouts are going to take over the world, or take over the media. Great point. We're going to. We've now memorialized that on YouTube. You said it. There we go. Right here. You heard it first. And Cynthia Louise also mentioning that we're no longer going to be spectators but participants. Another great point. So yeah, like you said, start thinking about how we can do that with the discussions we're having and the things that we're doing here with Hangouts and Google+. Now we do have another question from Cheryl Deuce, which is a good one here. So what do you think about an HOA that's pre-recorded? And so the idea being that you pre-record the video, you set up an old school event where you can embed the video after the fact, and then you have the audience, the host is commenting in the audience. I think it's a little different spin, but may have its uses. What do you think?
I think it's I think internet marketers love automating things, kind of like GoToWebinar, where it's like, okay, I'll do one GoToWebinar and then I'm just going to run it with people again and again and again. And we kind of got used to not having live engagements like this, right? There are like all these systems that will automate the stuff for you. And you can have webinars all over the world at the same time, whenever it's convenient for them, blah, blah, blah. I think it's the same thing as the assembly line, right? You take the personality out of there, everything is mass-produced, and it doesn't feel, there's no connection. So it really depends on your desired outcome. What are you trying to build? Are you trying to get traffic, or are you trying to build relationships? If you're trying to build relationships, like in real life, it takes longer. It's not going to happen overnight. You're going to have to invest, and you're going to have to get to know people. Can you do that with automated webinars? There are statistics that show where trust is being built, like through which mediums. I'm sorry, not statistics, research. So how do they trust each other over text? Do they trust each other over audio? Do they trust each other over video and in person? And what are the level of trust? And I think that we're living in an environment now where trust is so fragile, and we're not trusting, it's very difficult for us to trust people. So if you want to develop the trust, it has to happen like this, face-to-face, interaction. And just to show that it is working, like look at the Hangouts in real life, right? Like who would have thought strangers would fly over, fly to meet other strangers, people they have never met in person, and they will connect as if they've known each other for years. So that does not happen automatically.
Yeah, amen to that. That's more than one occasion that I've done that. I'm at a point now where like once I hang out with you, that like takes, and it could have been private too, or private hangout or hangout in real life. It just my sort of where you fall on like the how well I know you type thing just goes to a completely different level. And it's you think about even how the friends that we've had on Facebook since high school and those kinds of relationships we've had. You put the time in to meet, to get to know those people. And I think we forget that. Like you actually invested a fair amount of time when you were younger getting to know these people and getting to know all about them and things like that. That's why you still consider them friends, or at least on a certain level, right? But these are complete strangers, like you said, and we have no idea where you come from, what your story is, and the fact that we get to have these interactions. And this is the first time that we've hung out with you. I think Ben, you too, right? This is the first time the three of us have hung out, and yet I feel like, especially commenting, like I said in our trailer, if you just hop over to any of your threads, you talk about, you're so open and you're able to connect with people so well that, I feel like I know you a lot better than if we had just had you on a show and it was just some, oh, here's our guest kind of thing. Like it's totally real. This is awesome. I love it.
Yeah. Well, if you think about relationships and what actually creates a friendship, right, or whatever, what creates a bond, it's an experience. That's what creates that bond. And in the offline world, like you said, when we were kind of growing up and we didn't have this kind of capability, those experiences were made by going to the movies or going to high school together or whatever. With the Hangouts, we're allowed to have those experiences, and we're at an accelerated rate. And if we click in a Hangout, we might actually do something, work on a project together, discuss something that's going on in our lives, whatever. And then, like you were saying, Yifat, then when you get to that point where you actually hang out in real life, it's like that instant connection. It's like you feel like you've been friends forever. So
yeah, and you know what? It's amazing. Like I was trying to figure out why is it that we are really meeting our soulmates on Google+ and not anywhere else, right? And I think it is the nature of Google, because when you first come to Google+, what you do is you search, because that's Google. So what do you search? You search for your passions and what you're interested in, and what do you find? You find the conversation about the stuff that you're interested in, and then you have something to say about that conversation, and then It happens. If you're, I don't know, if you're a neo-Nazi, I'm probably never going to run into you because I'm not searching for neo-Nazis. Right? You and I will never meet. You're probably going to meet your tribe. I'll be talking with my tribe, right? And it'll be fun. And then if you happen to come onto my stream because you were searching for Jews and you happen to find me and we started to get into an argument. So either we have constructive discussion and we're talking to each other, or you really a Nazi, like really horrible, and I'm just going to block you and never see you again. And so it's very easy to find the people that you want to connect with, right? Because we're connecting based on passions, and what is more connecting than a passion? We're both passionate about cooking, we're both passionate about hangouts, we're both passionate about parenting. So it's like, yeah, we went to the same school, but you know, you have your interest, I have my interest, there's nothing really in common. Here it's like you find, based on the nature of Google, you find the people that you want to be connected with. And I think that is really what makes Hangouts so comfortable. And in real life, we come back and we're still talking about the same. This is amazing because I just, like I'm going to go on a rant. But I was, one of my best friends, Linda Feinholz, she and I talk business all the time, and I give my brother-in-law a ride, and so she and I have a conversation, and he hears it because he's in the car, and when we're off, he goes like, I figure out what you do all day, and I'm like, really? And he's like, yeah, you just blab about business the entire time, and I'm like, dude, that was not business, this was friends. So I was like, for us, because we connected over business, we can geek right until the cows come home and never get tired of it. And for people who are not interested, this will be like blah, 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 blah. So we are able to, right, geek out with people that care about the same thing we care about. And that's why this is so connecting. That's why the relationship is there.
Well, you know, and pin me, Stefan. But, you know, you brought up a ton of good points there. But, you know, to bring this back to business a little bit, right? So you were saying, why is Google Plus, you know, so much like this? I think that might have to do a lot with the semantic relevance between people, between entities, because that's what we are. We're entities. All the discussions, all of the people that we know. But from a business perspective, when we start engaging with groups of people that are of like mind or have to share those like passions, we start to attract people that also have those passions. And that actually ends up bringing a higher basically return on investment, because those people are actually truly interested in what you have to say, versus you're always having to push out a message like an advertising banner, you know, or, well, I mean, yeah, like an advertising banner, basically. Yeah. Which is why, like, Plus post ads are awesome, actually, and they get, you know, great click-through rates. Yes. And great engagement. So that brings it kind of back to the business point, and not to get, I mean, this has all been awesome sauce, by the way. You know, but let's talk a little bit about that, because you do a lot of business on Google Plus, right? Mm-hmm. So, you know, tell us a little bit about some of the ROI that you've discovered from Hangouts and from just Google Plus business in general.
So this is very interesting because that's another mind shift, I think, that needs to happen. Moving away from marketing to engagement. And the question is, how do you quantify engagement? So, for example, let's say we had 10 more people or 7 more people in the Hangout with us, and a relationship was being built in the chat, in the internal chat that happens between 2 other people in the Hangout, not even us, right? How do you quantify that? How do you quantify it? How do you put a number on that relationship? What if in the long term, in the next 6 months to a year, these 2 people now build a business together just because they met on our Hangout on a specific topic? How do you quantify that? So the numbers, I think, are nice, but they are not, they're easily manipulated, right? It's very easy to just bombard something, you bombard a page with fake views and followers and all that stuff. It's very easy to manipulate that. So how do you, as a business, really quantify your relationships? And Sarah Hill was saying that. She's like, if there's no way to quantify this human connection. Talk about like word of mouth. How do you quantify if you're like a brick and mortar, right? And someone comes to your business and loves it, and then goes out and tells 5 other people that they loved it. Do you even know? How do you measure that, right? So for me, with businesses, what I show my clients is the personal conversations that are happening between people. Like, hey, look, this person just sent us a private message. They're buying our book. They're talking about us. They're sharing it. And that, it's someone that you can start building a relationship with, and if they're connected to the community that you want to be connected to, that they're going to come back and talk about you. It's kind of like reviews a little bit, right? Like, how do you get reviews? But again, reviews, they're awesome for future clients who are checking you out. But how do you? This is really, it's not. I don't have the answer, the perfect answer. How do you quantify relationships, right? Is it a number of sales? It's like, how do you quantify it over the long term? How do you do that? Maybe later on you can fill up a room with a lot of people, right? Like the first event that you did, 10 people showed up. The second event you did, 100 people showed up. Wow, my word is going out there. I have not increased my expenses on marketing. I have not expended, my advertisement, but I'm filling up a room now, and there's word of mouth around the city or on the internet. There's this buzz that talks about me and what I bring, and people are coming. That's a great ROI, right? So I think it's still very new. It's like we're just like in the infancy where people Christopher, come back. Put another comment. I don't know what infancy is. But we are really defining this space, right? We are going out and telling people, okay, don't look at the number, talk about engagement. How do you, like if you search for Google Plus for engagement now, you get engagement rings, right? You don't get disengagement. The word has not gone out yet to mean what we mean, the way we use it. And when you're talking to people, right, like your clients, they don't get engagement. They don't care about engagement, right? They're like, hey, I want real followers. How do you know they're real? Right? Because they're not a blue head. How do you they're commenting? How do you know people are real? And now Google changed their real name policy. How would you know? Right?
Yeah, we've actually got a question from people about the Google name policy. We'll get into
an entire conversation too.
Yeah.
So guys, if you're watching this and you have an answer, how would you quantify? What would be success to you in the next, 6 months when you're building your show? What does that mean to you? Do a wisdom of the crowd kind of thing.
Well, I think that comes back to building, what we always talk about, which is what's your strategy, what's your intent, what is your end goal? And really, I think, to kind of say what you just said in a nutshell, and that is don't give up. The ROI is there. Build your engagement, build your audience. This is still a very young platform. And if you build those connections, the return on investment is going to come through your return on engagement. Right?
Sarah Hill moved from TV to Hangout host, right? The viewers that she had when she was doing TV, maybe 100,000, maybe, right? The people in her city that was watching it. On Google Plus, she has like 3 million followers, real followers, right? So is that your ROI, right? Her reach now is bigger. If you have 3 million followers, would you consider that success in ROI? Like, what is it? You have to quantify it for yourself. What is it that you want to achieve? Do you want to sell more books? Do you want to bring people to your business? Do you want to be known as a speaker? And then based on that, you go and you start developing the relationship that will give you that authority, right? Author rank, reputation. And that would be success. But do you quantify author rank? It's like, how do you, for every person, it's different.
Yeah, and Lee Rickler actually has an interesting perspective on this, and I think I'll read it first, and then we'll break it down real fast, because you quantify by judging what you want to get out of it. Like, I want to run a Hangout to increase my follower count. You run the Hangout, did my follower count increase? If so, then you did what you came to do. And I think it's a very good point, because we're treading into this nebulous term, this nebulous world of like, we can't quantify things. It's hard to quantify stuff like engagement and followers and what does this all mean? And you get somebody coming to your website that converts, fills out a form, and the referral traffic says that they came from Facebook. The reality is, once you get to know them, that they heard about you from like a friend, but they happen to click through from Facebook. So quantifying all of that is really, really difficult. So I think the bigger lesson here that Lee sort of brought up is, you want to try and break things down as far as your marketing strategy goes into smaller bite-sized chunks. And each one of them will eventually build on top of each other, and you can't just look at one big silver bullet to to solve all your problems by doing like one hangout show or a series or one blog post or whatever it ends up being. You can't do that. All this stuff has to go together today. And you're right, it is a lot harder to quantify. So just pick little conversions, little things that you can test and you can measure with some level of confidence. And just like you said too, Yifat, once you look at those, then say, well, what does that really mean to me? Does that help me accomplish my goal? Or if not, how far do I have to play this whole thing out to the point where I feel comfortable testing something? And then you can go ahead and test it, and you can test it with confidence. If you bomb, you bomb, but at least you know that it was worth, at least you know what was behind it, and you made a good, educated business decision.
You know what? The follower thing is very tricky because I've heard people going like, look at me, I got from 1,000 followers to 2,000 followers in such a short time because I used shared circles. Can we talk about shared circles? You guys know because you understand. You're laughing because you understand.
Oh yeah, totally.
Go for it. Just spew. Let's talk about quality followers. Let's talk about that real quick.
What did you really get? That's the bottom line. What did you really get? Who are these followers? Do they really care about you, or they're just trying to grow their own followers as well, right? So by the end of the day, are they going to talk to you? Are they going to share you? Are they going to engage with you? Or are they just numbers? And just to prove a little point that I think Google understands that so well is because they removed the +1s and they're showing the views now. And so what matters is the ratio between the number of views and the number of followers, right? So.
And even though that number can be a little suspect, and there are ways to totally inflate that, it's still, you're right, it's a lot more measurable. That you can say, okay, well, views are always going to go, almost always going to go up. It's kind of hard. You got to work hard for your views to go down, because it's, I don't know how you take away views, something that's already happened in the past. But the fact is, those are going to go up. So you're always going to be able to look at, at what rate. And if it's growing at a really slow rate compared to your follower count, or if it's growing at an abnormally high rate, then you can start to see like, okay, here's where my changes are happening, and this is what I did this time, this is what I did this time, and then you can start to find. But even beyond that, guys, like when you start to see that information, like don't just say, oh, that's great, I want to try and do it again. Figure out what that actually means. Like, did that mean that you built 3 new actual legitimate relationships because you shared something that got the attention of an influential person in your niche, and you were able to strike up a relationship with them? Like, don't focus on the fact that, like, use that information to say, okay, here's something I have to look at and figure out why and figure out what that means to me, not just as a vanity metric, which I think is what everybody kind of refers to in this space, right?
People are getting awards. Oh my God, people are getting awards for like, look at me, I grew from 1,000 to 2,000 in such a short time. I'm like, oh my, yeah. So there's work for us, my friends, Stefan, Ben. We have to continue educating that it's engagements and the relationship, and those numbers of likes from Facebook and followers from Twitter don't mean the same thing on the Google sphere, because everything is connected, and Google is not looking at just, do you have +1s, do you have followers? They're looking at your entire relationship. And think about that. Google has access to everything that you do. With your freaking Google Now on your phone, they know where you are, they know your calendar, they know what you're talking about in your email, they know what videos you're watching on YouTube, they know what you're searching for on your mobile, what you clicked. They got your personal identity figured out. So are you going to try to skim the system? It's going to be very difficult to just have like, look at me, I'm popular on Google+, I have millions of followers, but nobody's talking to me on Gmail and calendar, I'm not going anywhere. So everything is connected.
Yeah, the fact is that there is no hiding. There is no hiding. If you want to game the system for vanity, well, that's all you're going to get out of it. You're going to get a little bit of an ego boost. You're going to feel better about yourself in the morning. At the end of the day, you're not going to have any new sales, new engagement, new relationships coming through the door. Exactly. And that's what's going to hurt you. So, and you're completely right about the ratio. If you game that ratio, again, you're still just gaming a system for this phantom award or whatever, so you can, again, make yourself kind of feel a little bit better. Stop trying to feel just better about yourself. Go out and make some relationships.
And make
Get
it
people to actually look at your content and engage with your content. And guess what? You're going to really feel better when that happens. So.
Yeah, it's hard because we're in such a instant gratification society, right?
It's so true. So here we go. We obviously went over because we were ranting and it was awesome and everybody seemed to be really enjoying it and they were talking to themselves, talking with each other too in the comments. So that's great. I want to see what do you guys think of? I've pinned about 3 or 4 questions. You guys want to do like a lightning round real quick?
Let's do.
All right, because we're kind of pulling it back to Hangouts here. So I'm going to start with Earl Rudolfo. And he asks, just to change the tone a bit, so that was sort of my cue too, how do you decide what topics that would be interesting to draw an audience on a HOA? Good question. Who wants to take it?
It's the same thing as TV, right? There are channels for everything. There's the History Channel, the Science Channel, the Cooking Channel, everything. So what channel do you want to host? And then you decide what it is that you want to talk about, and then you build that audience. And then you have a show with an audience to that show. So I think the topics can be any topic, as long as you have people who are interested in watching it or participating. And because we are global, not just local, then you're probably going to find an audience worldwide, right?
Yeah, definitely. And I would also say engage that audience also within G+, but also try and get to know them over email and things like that, so that if the rules ever change over here, and it gets progressively difficult to contact people and reach out to them. What's that?
Not if, when the rules change.
Yeah, straight up. That's why we, in fact, they even flat out say it on our subscribe page on our website. It's like, hey, let's face it, guys, this is going to change. So we would love to be able to stay connected with you. But even more importantly, if somebody's going to give you their email address, they're really interested in what you have to say. So you reciprocate by having legitimate conversations, replying to the emails. Don't just put out. Go check out the one we did with Unbounce and Conversion XL, guys, the recap on that discussion with page fights, which was a couple weeks ago. Go read that recap on our website because it gives a little bit more insights into that and has a couple of really cool takeaways. All right, next up.
Actually, really quickly, because I think that important part to that question is like, because we don't have actual like siloed, this is channel 5 of Google Plus. Which is about, say, cooking, is that, as an HOA host, you could also go on other people's shows, use other people's audiences to attract another part of their audience that's interested in, say, your cooking show. So.
Yep.
Very true. Very true. All right, I'm going to bring over Jennifer Marshall, who's a regular tweeter, by the way. Thank you, Jennifer. You rock. And she's asking, do you believe an HOA is the right platform for a health advocate? There's a good lightning round question for you there.
Health advocate, meaning you want to preach health? Is that what she means?
Actually, that is a good question. So, Jennifer, if you're listening, you want to throw a follow-up in there, go for it. Otherwise, I would say maybe, from the standpoint of just somebody who's interested in healthy lifestyles, things like that, how could we could use shows or HOAs for that type of thing.
So Crystal Kassain is in our audience. Jennifer, connect with Crystal because she has a badass show about juicing. She has over 2 million views to her page that has over, I think, 2,000 followers, something like that. So she's really positioned herself very well in the juicing and the raw community. They use that to build a mailing list. They have an entire business going on with that. So their health is huge. There are a lot of people who are doing it, and as long as you're not preaching, advocating, but you're actually helping people with their health stuff, I'm sure tons of audience.
Great. Okay, Christopher Vogelman again. Quite an active gentleman. Thank you, buddy. So would you recommend having a regularly scheduled HOA or a floating time slot? Oh, I could answer this one. Yeah, definitely stay consistent, as consistent as you can, and even if it's just a day, and you maybe go every couple of weeks or whatever. But the more consistent you can be, you think back to television, guys. You remember must-see TV on Friday nights. You remember Saturday morning cartoons. They were Friday nights. They were Saturday morning. Game of Thrones is on at 9 o'clock on Eastern on HBO on Sundays when it's on. Like, everybody associates those time slots with those shows. So the more popular show you get, you pull right out of the TV play guide here. So yeah, I would, and I started this show on a Thursday, realized that like everybody does stuff on Thursdays, and then switched it over to Wednesday. And it's Wednesday in the middle of the absolute middle of the week for me, Eastern. But you know what? It works for my schedule, and it's something I can do consistently as a host. And so, and bringing Ben on a few weeks later, he's Pacific time, but it's also not so early for him that he can come in on board and do his thing, and we can bring in a West Coast audience. So yeah, I mean, the more consistent you can be, the better. And I would say try and play to your audience's time zone as best as you can. So there's my advice for you there. Okay, we've got. I want to do our last question here, which is sort of a basic one, but I think is a great way to wrap up. So, what equipment would you from Tronda Edwards? Thank you for commenting, by the way. What equipment would you recommend for a business just starting out, wanting to begin using Google Hangouts? Of course, we didn't talk about green screens or anything like we wanted to today. This has been a great little dovetail, but that's okay. So, Yifat, I'm going to toss that one back over to you. And,
so, the most important thing for a business starting out is being hardwired to the internet. Otherwise, you will be choppy, you'll be booted off, the audio will be horrible. So hardwired connection. I know we're all used to Wi-Fi. Then I would use Logitech because it's like $70, I think, the C920. So $70, you got yourself a high-definition camera. You can connect it to any laptop. If you're using a Mac, maybe the C920, I don't think works for a Mac. So the C920.
Actually, yeah, the C920 does work on a Mac.
There you go. So C920 work with any computer. So high definition camera, it has a good microphone on it as well. And just to starting up, you should be good. Later on, if you guys want to talk about, like a little bit of a green screen and community and, professional hangouts, you will need a team to support you. So when you're starting out, you can make it very, very simple. You, another guest, and wherever you are, make sure your background is clean. Because I've seen people hanging out with messy offices in their bedrooms. It takes away from the presentation because all I'm doing while you're talking is looking to see what you have lying there on the bed. It's like, right? So make the background not as interesting as you are, right? Stand out from the background. Keep it clean. If it's just a little corner in your room, right, where you are facing the window, so you have like really great light, and all that someone can see is like a flat, like a blank screen behind you or a nice picture, it's good enough to getting started. Later on, you can invest in building a studio. And a studio might just mean, a sofa, a plant, some flowers maybe, something that like creating the frame of your show. And it can just be like what Wade was doing, paint a wall blue and put, like those art decor that you can stick on the wall, and then when you don't like it, you just peel it off, and it's nothing permanent that you have to mess with. And the reason why I'm not really pushing green screen is because, God bless Google, but they're changing everything all the time. All the time. So do you really want to go out now and invest $3,000 for like a high-end equipment, computer, processor, memory, video card, graphic card that can run, virtual effects and, videos and all that stuff while it's also broadcasting? And find out what browser works with what, and now Google changed the layout so your software doesn't connect well with the layout and your microphone doesn't work. Tons of headache, right? Let's work on getting a professional show, building the audience and engagement first. Once that's done, you can bring in other people to help you with the engagement, like Stepan is doing right now, right? While we're talking, he's working the comments. Bring other people that can do graphics on the fly and grab quotes and turn them into podcasts and build your audience. Once that's done and you start paying for yourself, then you can have a team and have someone techie that runs the whole thing for you in the background while you're being a great host. So level 1, keep it clean, be comfortable with Hangouts, know where everything is, and build a relationship. The relationship is there. You can start upgrading a little bit, building a team, and then moving to the tech realm. So yeah, that's my whole plan. Laptop, camera, hardwire, go.
Yeah, and I will say a lot of us use the microphones from Blue. The company Blue, the Yeti or the Snowball are pretty much favorites. This is the Snowball. I have mine on a boom mic so that when I type, which is now needs a little bit of adjustment, but but that's so that when I type, it does, it doesn't pick up the sound on. But you'll mess with all this stuff, right? You'll play with all these things. The screen, the backdrop behind me is from a friend of ours, Laurie Leisure from Customized Walls. It's actually vinyl printed wallpaper, which comes on and comes right back off. And I mean, to the point where I could even create like little mini walls for myself and do a whole bunch of different ones. She's, totally awesome. You'd have to contact her separately if you're interested in something like that, because it's not something she has, I don't think, right now up on her website. I'm holding my mic because the boom is going to crash. So sorry for that, guys. But I think this is let's quit while we're ahead here, because there's been, and I know there's a couple more questions in the in the comments. We'll stick around. But this has just been really fantastic information. I think a great call to action here for everybody watching who's interested in getting involved with Hangouts and taking it to another level. Take a look at get the basic tech. Think about what you can do to create topics that people would be interested in and want to talk about and want to get involved with. Think about how you can how you'll be able to do that, whether it's having a team with you together, or maybe or doing it flying solo or whatever. And just do it. Just get started, and you don't have to have blockbuster shows from the beginning. The idea is, like Yifat's been saying the whole time, you build these relationships little by little, one person at a time. You get some advocates going for you, and the next thing you get a couple more people every time coming to your show and talking about it. And to that, actually, if I can, real quick, I want to shout out guys like Bill Ashton, all the time sharing us. I mean, we've got we have Marilyn Moore from our Google Plus for Small Business community. There's a couple people off the top of my head that are very consistent with tweeting about us. Denise Wakeman also tweets. Jennifer Marshall. We have a lot of people who help us out on Twitter and help bring the show to more people, and we appreciate that. And want to quick little shout out and thank you too. And I guess yeah. So that's it for us for this week. Now, Yifat, where can we connect with you other than just hopping onto one of your threads and saying hi, which I would recommend to everybody? But you got anything special that we can pitch for you here?
I do. Can I do a few shout outs?
Do it. Yeah, absolutely. Well,
so one, I am I don't know if you guys know internet marketers, Jeff Johnson, Evan Pagan. This month I'm working with both of them to create exactly what we are talking about here, from the basics to the advanced. If you guys want to join us on that, I will be very happy to share with you. Evan Pagan is an internet marketer who's running an event right now, a program called Accelerate, and it's helping people take their business to the $1 million level. He has done that a few times. I will be speaking in Chicago at his Sold Out event August 7th, and I have 3 seats available to hand out. So I will be posting about that. If you're interested in Accelerate, check that out. I'll be talking about that. And that's it. So GPLUSSGoToGal.com, right there. I think. You can find me.
But we can put in the comments.
Yes. And then, Stefan, you have a gift for them, right?
I do, yes. For everybody on our subscriber list, we have a gift that we're going to give a shout out. We're going to send you guys a link to. I'm going to give this a couple hours so that it processes it. I'm going to send out an email to our email list. So go to GPLUSSPOTLIGHT.com. Sign up. Appreciate that. And like I said, we don't want to spam you guys. It's not what it's all about. It's about deepening the relationship with our audience. That's what that whole purpose of the email list is about. And obviously to protect ourselves should the rules change, not should, when the rules change when it comes to events and things like that. So head over there, and sometime today you're going to get an email from us saying with a recap here, and also a couple other little things, and a gift from Yifat, which we really appreciated. I took a look at it earlier, and it's freaking awesome. It's like one of your best guides. Oops. Well, it's really awesome. It's definitely going to help you guys elevate your games if you're interested in this type of stuff. So check that out, and we'll obviously reach out to you guys when we have our next show next Wednesday, 12:30 Eastern. That's 9:30 Pacific, 5:30 in the UK for Google Plus Business Spotlight. And for Ben, Yifat, myself, thank you guys for watching. Really appreciate you sticking around as long as we did. And we'll see you guys in the comments and around here on Google Plus.
Thanks.